What's up, guys? TMJFB Trade Deadline review. We had a ton of action. The deadline obviously being Monday. It was Sunday, moved it to Monday. Let's go in. I want to review every trade that took place over the weekend here, extended weekend. Just to let you know before we get started here that I do have the baby with me, and we're going to try to get through this with the baby. Hopefully he don't cry at all, honestly, but we'll see what we can do. So I want to jump right into each trade. We did these in the order in which they occurred, as opposed to, by team. I try to do by team. This actually took like a good solid hour to get all of the trades that actually took place, which is just absolutely nuts to show you how many trades actually took place. And also look for, we're going to do probably, I don't want to call it a mid-season review, or not review, but like a mid-season rank. It's not really fair to do at this point since we're kind of past the midseason point, but maybe like a playoff picture. Maybe we'll start doing like a weekly playoff picture for the kind of remaining 6 teams, if you will. So jumping in, we're going to go all the way back a couple of weeks to Springfield trading for Mookie Betts. At the time, he was last in points but had record, and it's kind of a similar situation for him. I don't think he necessarily regrets this trade. This is kind of like a look back as opposed to like a what just happened 2 days ago. Mookie Betts is, he's solid, but Luis Castillo has really taken off a little bit here. He's been retraded since and gave up a first, and not really a stud prospect or anything like that. The cap was the big issue here, and Dip City being able to resell Castillo got him another pick, so he ended up with really 2 firsts just for getting Betts out there. So I'm going to grade these as we go if I can. I have not pre-graded these in my head at all. So we're just going to kind of fly by the seat of our pants on these. So I like that Springfield went for it. He's trying to make the playoffs. I totally get that. I didn't necessarily like giving up on Castillo so much, but I still think I'm going to give him a B ranking there. And for Dip City, I think that this was kind of almost a no-brainer to an extent. Some of these guys could be resold. So, moving bets is impossible. I'm going to give Dip City an A for that one. So not really bad all around. Dip City, a lot of action, obviously. Orlando, a lot of action. So we'll talk about them quite a lot here. And let's get into the Kevin Gausman trade, which happened also around maybe 3 weeks ago. Like this, really, for both sides here. Gausman, as you may or may not know, I always make the joke with Weist at least that you kind of get the post Raiders bump after you leave the Raiders team. I had Gausman for the last 7 years or so, and he has not looked remotely like he has now. In fact, I cut him before last playoff because he was hurt. I could have had a $4 option on the guy, and I cut him because he was hurt. And I never thought he'd do this, right? So, what do you get for Kevin Gausman? Pretty much max value here with Julio Rodriguez. I think that Julio is going to be a perennial all-star. So I think Bayou's in a spot where they're like, we need to make the playoffs. Initially, I would have graded this differently than I would now. I think that having had Gausman for so long, I am kind of timid to think that Gausman is going to continue to be the guy he's been this year and revert more to the guy he's been the last 7 years. But over the last 2, 3 weeks or so, that hasn't happened yet. So, from my perspective, I got to give Bayou an A for this trade, and I also have to give Dip City an A for this trade because Julio is awesome and Gausman is awesome, and this is the kind of trade you want to do for a buy sell. Next, getting into Orlando versus Structure. None of these deals so far have happened on the actual trade deadline, so we're going to try to bust through them because they're not, well, they're fresh in our head, but they may be not so fresh. Anyway, Carlos Rodon, I really like this for Orlando. He's having not a huge year, but almost a breakout year, one that we've kind of hoped would happen. And I think that he's getting his Ks up, and he's playing for Chicago, so he's going to get wins. I love that it's a 2-year contract. Personally, for me, these pitching prospects, these 9-year pitching contracts, are extraordinarily risky. Yeah, it's only $1.21. I get that, but and if it hits, then it's like massive risk, massive well, I don't want to say massive risk because it's only $1.21, but it is massive reward for moderate risk here because at the end of the day, this is a guy that could have been picked up. This could have been Cronenworth. So this could have been any of these dollar guys that get picked up or end up pretty good at the end of the draft here. So for me, I actually think I favor this in Orlando's favor. When Asa Lacy got kind of called up to be in the draft, as like an auction guy. I was a little surprised. I didn't think he'd get this much money, but I guess that he did end up getting this. So for this, I'd give Orlando probably an A minus here. And I would give structure, it's not a bad deal at the end of the day. It really isn't. But because there is added risk, I'd give him a B plus. So we're being pretty good so far here with these trades. I mean, there's nothing above or minus a B here. So let's keep going because I'm sure we'll find some that are not so great. This one here, Orlando, it's not really as noteworthy, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Trevino at one point was not getting all the saves, and now he is clearly. Garcia's been decent, and you give up Duran. I really like Duran. I think that people are talking him up a lot, and if nothing else, they're going to get a lot of hype from him. I think even Orlando had mentioned he thinks he oversold on this one. And so once again, I'm giving Dip City an A for this effort because really you're giving up nothing from your perspective. I mean, yeah, there's the second round pick, that's fine, but you're getting a pretty solid hype guy here. And for Orlando, this one I'm probably going to give a B minus because yes, you did help. You did get Trevino. The kind of standard is like a first round pick, I think, for a closer. And I think that, Duran, it's pretty close to that. So I don't think that this is a killer in any way, shape, or form. Moving on, this still isn't to the trade deadline, but we'll get there. Cronenworth and Castillo. I think I got lucky here with Castillo because Tampa Bay had a lot of options at closer, and at the time Castillo was kind of struggling, but I think that he's now since retaken that, so that's good. Cronenworth's obviously good. Royce Lewis is a good pickup for, 1-year guy. Basically, I'm never going to need these guys again, so Royce Lewis is another good pickup, so I'm once again giving Shawnee an A for that, and I will give myself a solid B plus to get Cronenworth. I think that that's a good price at that. So moving on, Josh Hader. We just talked about kind of like closers. Jeff went on and got another closer here. This one he kind of paid up for a little bit more, in my opinion at least. It seems like he paid quite a bit for closers, whereas some people hadn't. Ryan kind of got the first round pick thing, and two good prospects for the best closer though. Let's be fair, it is the best closer in the league. Milwaukee is brutal, so games that they win are usually pretty close, and so it is the best closer in the game. But man, I don't like giving that much for a closer. I personally am going to give this one a C plus to Orlando, and I'm going to give West Coast. I'm going to give them an A minus for the value that they got in this one. I think that these guys could have been split or picks involved and kept one of them, and I kind of like both of these guys too. So moving on, Orlando, you're going to be on here quite a lot. Nittany Tide, though, is not going to be on here a lot, which is kind of surprising. But let's talk about this trade. It's kind of interesting because I think this had to have been a positional trade because Didi did come back and he's already hit 2 home runs, which I'm sure Jeff has not loved to see. But Escobar doesn't. I think he's got what, second and third, at least third. And so I don't remember off the top, but it doesn't have shortstop, so he's probably shortstop heavy. Needed a third, and I think he did need a third base. So this is a good fit for Orlando. And Jordan Adams is kind of like a big hype guy. I don't know if he's going to ever be fantasy relevant, but he's a guy that could be resold or hyped up, and he could hit. So for Orlando, it's kind of a standard B. It's not much of a you didn't get a ton of value, but you did get a good guy. And Nittany Tide, I'd probably give him a B as well. Pretty kind of standard trade, if you will, Shawnee there. All right, now we got to talk about this one here. So I'm not sure where to start here. David Peterson, I'm not sure what Mikey saw or sees in David Peterson. I think to the point where he was traded, he only had 130 points when Garrett Cole had 300. Now that's not a fair comparison, but it's not like David Peterson was even like pitching that well, at the time. And I know that we want to say, okay, Xavier Edwards is kind of like a throwaway. I think that that's totally fair to a degree. I do think that he could maybe break out and maybe be kind of like a serviceable bench, maybe. But Christian Pach or Pache or however you want to say his last name, I did a column on here that said like he's not fantasy relevant, and I still think that that's probably somewhat accurate, but he's got the number 10 next to his name on the prospect list, and he was breaking out a little bit before he got hurt this year. So you have to figure that at worst he's going to be, at worst, a decent bench outfielder or a AAA outfielder that you can plug in and play at worst. And if he continues to break out, he could be much more than that. So David Peterson for me was basically worse than a pickup guy. You could have picked somebody up for David. Now I understand that you couldn't pick somebody up for free, but like, is he any better than Carlos Martinez? Uh, I I would have traded Christian Pash for Martinez in a heartbeat. So for me, this one, and I think Stevens would probably agree, I accidentally hit D because I actually want to give it the old unknowable F, and I want to give Jeff the old A plus on this one. This was the most lopsided trade of the entire kind of season here, if you will. We got a lot more trades to go through, so I'm going to try to keep going here. Rhinos getting in on the action. They didn't have a lot of cap to begin with, and Structure also getting in on the action. Structure was kind of in a weird spot where they didn't really have a lot of guys to sell. I think that they went into this season, they got a lot of multi-deal guys, and they're hoping that they could take these multi-deal guys and kind of push this forward. But it just didn't work out that way, and so I don't think that they necessarily had a lot of guys to sell. But getting some value for Blake Snell. I don't think that Blake Snell is going to be the answer the Rhinos need. I think that Blake Snell is a guy that should have gone to a team, maybe like the Raiders, a team where it's kind of like, okay, we feel pretty comfortable where we're at. And maybe, just maybe, Blake Snell can kind of, I don't want to say turn around. He won't pitch more than 5 innings. It's baffling. He has not looked very good. He's been hurt. And I know that Ryan needs arms, but arms that are looking like this is not really what I feel like Ryan needs. I know he's got not a lot of cap and not a lot of places to put people, but I don't feel like another injury prone, high risk, high reward pitcher is really what Ryan needs, seeing as how he's already got a lot of that. So I do like the move to get an arm, obviously, and he got Herman as well, who he traded later. But I'm going to give Ryan a C plus for this one. And then for Structured Fireside, Sabato, I think that's how you say his name, and Stanton. Stanton, that could be a good contract. It could not. I'm not sure yet, so I'm just going to give this a kind of a standard B grade there. Coming into Trevor Rogers and West Coast getting now in on the action. Here's where you see the second half of the Pache patch trade. I think that he kind of, he dipped the value way down, and then, he came back up in value to where I feel like he should have been. This is the kind of trade that I kind of expected Stevens to make. You've basically flipped Peterson here for Trevor Rogers. I mean, imagine Stevens right now would much rather have Trevor Rogers than anything that he got. And West Coast side, yeah, he gets Posh, he gets the third round pick. That's decent enough. But this flip right here, I got to give an A. The only knock I'm going to have on West Coast is I actually, and this is probably my fault too, I forgot Trevor Rogers was even on his team. When we were kind of talking back and forth on what to get, what do we want to do, maybe we have a deal, maybe we don't. I didn't even remember that he was there. So I think that shopping around could have done some good, potentially. I don't know. Maybe he likes Pache. Maybe he doesn't. I'm going to give it a B minus because I still think he got pretty good value there. Rhino, okay, this is like the by the book, the textbook, kind of trade. Ryan gets a good closer, gets some depth. I'm going to give that an A, and the Spartans get a first round pick. And I'm going to give that an A as well. And you know what? In fact, I'm going to give Ryan an A plus here because this is a AAA guy, and he didn't have to pay anything for him. So I really like that for both teams. We'll just keep moving on because that's not too crazy because we got a crazy one here. Lots of pitching. Bayou absolutely going for it. I love that they're going for it. I think they got a fair deal here from Midtown right off the bat. Just seeing this and not seeing a massive name returned. I got to give Bayou a nice A here. I do think that this return is good. Daniel Lynch and Richardson. I've heard good things about Richardson. I do still feel like, at least personally, that by splitting these guys out, you could have had maybe a little bit more value. This is just me. I'm biased. So I was offering Nolan Jones and a pick for Bassett. Personally, I would rather have Nolan Jones than any of this. Daniel Lynch, you could argue that you want the pitching over the third base. Okay, that's fine. I personally would still probably rather have Nolan Jones because arms are risky, but that's fine. Totally fine. So it's one of those things where I feel like a split out could have done some good here, which leads me to give a B minus grade here because I know there are other offers out there. Let's move on. Country Strong getting in the mix. Dip City still in the mix. A lot of picks moving. So what I like about this deal right off the bat is that Country Strong didn't really give up a lot of like actual assets. Yes, picks are assets. First next year is absolutely nice. It's a nice asset to have. But he didn't really give up any of that core, like big names, to get any of these guys. The counter to what I'm saying, though, is he kind of got the spare parts, I guess. I mean, here's the thing. He didn't give up a lot. He did give up a first. Okay, he didn't give up a lot, but at the same time, he's kind of rounding off the edges, making sure he's got the closer set up. He's got Moustakas has got second and third, so he's kind of Means is hurt, I think, but he's going to come back. Or Reezy, so he's bringing guys in for depth that can kind of push him along the way without giving too much. It's kind of like what I was trying to do. Like it's kind of like the cheap way to kind of push it forward without really dedicating a lot to it. So for me, I love the rounding out the edges piece of this, and so I'm gonna give a B plus. And then from Dip City side, all guys that he didn't really need at all, and I don't think he probably had that many offers coming for any of these guys necessarily. So I'm also gonna give this a B plus as well. So good trade all around, I think there. Country Strong, again, with Young Bucks now getting in the action. I like this trade, honestly, for both because Country Strong couldn't use Alex Reyes. Alex Reyes has looked really good. Freeland is a guy who, he's okay. And I think that's more of a throw-in kind of thing. And Young Bucks obviously aren't going to use Mancini past this year, so hey, why not move on, even if it's just for this? And now you get a prospect as well, decent, but I think that this is going to be your real value eventually. Hopefully, it continues to close. So for Country Strong, I like this because he didn't really give up a whole lot, and for the Young Bucks, I like this because he didn't give up a whole lot either. So I think both teams did well there. Roberto Perez and the third round pick. This is as standard as it gets. I think that both teams just get a B, and we can kind of move on. Raiders wanted a AAA bat, catcher, so we didn't have to pick one up if somebody got hurt. That's basically all that was. Salvador Perez for first. This seems like a pretty standard hit here. Garcia was 1 year, $1. I like this for Orlando. I like this for West Coast. And so if I like it, then I might as well give them both a solid A here. Dip City and the Raiders back in the mix here. If you don't know what Super Ryu World is, it is a Super Mario World, but somebody kind of like remade levels to make them really hard. And so that was called Super Ryu World. And I guess it's playable to whoever wants to play it. And it looked like pretty fun. I never played it myself. Ryu has really struggled, and I got sick of watching him. He throws 89. He doesn't strike anybody out. He gives up runs left and right. He can't get out of the first inning. His first inning ERA has got to be 20. After that, it's like 2. But it's just been bad, and this could be a deal that ends up kind of returning and biting me in the butt because you flip to Castillo, who I personally believe has looked a lot better and will continue to look a lot better. But if I'm wrong, I could have traded anybody else. I could have brought like Bassett in, gone harder on Bassett, and I could have had Ryu and Bassett instead of Castillo. So it's one of those where it's like this is a bit of a risk here, and I think that Dip City, of course, benefits because it doesn't really make any difference. So them getting involved and just getting a first-round pick basically out of nothing, to me, is an A. Now, the Raiders here, high risk here, potentially, but I do like it, and I'm going to stick with a B here. Rhino World, Country Strong. Now, we were a little confused of why Country Strong wanted to trade an outfielder, especially one of this kind of caliber. He's been playing really. Garcia and Haniger were available. and I see what he got here. You know, the second and the third round pick. You know, and that's fine, I guess, for a team that basically what happened was Country Strong made the trade with Dip City, and he had too many guys, so he had to move somebody if he wanted to keep all the guys from his trade. The problem for me, I guess, is I feel like I would rather have Garcia than let's go back up there. You know, wouldn't you rather have Garcia than I don't know Odorizzi? I feel like I would. You know, even maybe Means was hurt. So for me, you know, I think that Ryan did a really good job of sweeping in here and snagging Garcia. And I think that Country Strong maybe, I don't want to say made a mistake because he got some value back out of it, but I feel like maybe went with the wrong guy here. So I feel like I'm gonna go with the old C plus here on that one. We'll see how that works out. Then the last one, finally, and then we actually have more to go through. I was going to go team by team. I have no idea how long this video is, but we're going to continue to go team by team. The Candyman, another post Raiders bump. I had him in Double A, and now he's actually pretty serviceable. This trade really doesn't do anything. I don't think. I think Candyman's got dual eligibility, and Donaldson doesn't, and is more injury prone. So I think that I'd almost higher upside, less upside. I don't know. I think that this is kind of a standard Orlando getting his work done. Nittany Tide, I don't think they've really gained anything here, so I'm just going to drop a C grade there. So there's that, at least going trade by trade. That's what we have. We're at 21 minutes already, folks. Holy smokes. So we're going to jump as quickly as we can into the team grades. And oh boy, I think you pause your screen and look at this for Dip City. The other teams don't look quite like this, but notable like return for Dip City. You see all these guys, you know. I think this is quite a good return for somebody who thought that they were out of it. Look at all the action they did. The reward of this work kind of comes into play here. He's able to make some deals and get some guys and maybe have a better future for it. He's got 3 first-round picks out of this. So, I mean, I really like what Dip City did. They didn't really give up anything that big to get it. So, I am going to give Dip City right out of the gate an A+. That might be hard to see. Giving them an A+ for their efforts in this. Moving on to Rhino. Blake Snell, we kind of already talked about how I don't necessarily feel like that's the arm he needs, and the arms are what I feel like he really needed. Love Melanson and like Garcia a lot. So those are pulling his grade back up. But the fact that Ryan didn't get another arm, an arm that I feel like I can trust, and with the injuries that are already piling up, and with the kind of scenario we talked about way earlier, where he could just not have enough starts if enough guys get hurt, it's kind of frightening me. I'm going to give Ryan a B minus though, because I do like the Melanson and I do like the Garcia ads. And he really did not give that much up to get these guys, so I'm sticking to that. Bayou really going for it, honestly, going all in. When you look at this all kind of collectively, I think that, you know, if you thought he gave up too much to get Gosman, it's kind of made up maybe in here, because I feel like if I was to say, hey, I'm going to give you Gosman, Bassett, and DeSclafani for Rodriguez, Lynch, and Richardson, you'd probably be like, yeah, okay, that seems like a pretty good deal. So for me, Bayou did really well here. I'm going to give them an A minus. I think that it's good. I don't know what their hitting needs are, but I think that this pitching is now almost rejuvenated and it's going to look a whole lot different. And I think, honestly, I think Bayou's the favorite moving forward, as they were many years ago. I told you JD Martinez and Vlad was going to take off, and they did. Okay, let's move on. Orlando also went nuts. You can kind of see a lot of like bigger names here, and it doesn't really feel like it. They always go all in. Rodon, Rogers, Perez, Hader. I mean, all these are big names. Trevino. All these guys are going to come in, fill in the gaps, and really make this team better. Did they give up a lot to get them? Yeah, but, you know, at the end of the day, when you look at some of these guys, what's the biggest name? Okay, yeah, Lacey's the biggest name, and you know what? He had a contract, so that kind of devalues him, for me at least. It devalues him. So what's the next biggest name? And it's kind of like, okay, I guess like Mitchell, but you're not looking at, oh, I gave up Witt. I gave up, you know, Rodriguez. Oh, I gave up I gave up Casey Mize. You don't see that here. It's kind of a lot of guys who might never be anything, and this is what you got for all of that. So grade-wise for me, did he sell the future? Yeah, there's nothing left really. So, but you know, he's trying to win, and that's what you do in this league. You play to win the game. I'm giving Jeff an A- for all that effort. Structure Fire here it's kind of a disadvantage. Like I said, they didn't really have a whole lot they could do. So they did what they could with what they had, okay? And, the return was decent. This is what they did. This is all they could do. And, it's kind of like my standard grade for I didn't do poorly. I didn't do anything crazy. I'm giving them a B because that's really all they could do. And they did what they could do with it. So not a whole lot to talk about with structure here. And I'm just going to grade them here. Springfield, oh boy, okay. So Springfield's a tough one. I love that they went for it. I love that they're continuing to go for it. I like that they got bets when they got bets. I don't like that they lost Castillo necessarily, but they had to make that work. The Peterson trade really kind of sticks out, obviously. The thing so initially I want to grade this a bit lower simply because of that Peterson trade. The thing though is, okay, you go into the deadline and you're Stevens. You're almost last in points, but you have a game up on most of these other teams. So are you really gonna go out and buy? Buy? I mean, probably not. I mean, Orlando went for it, but they have a lot of points right now. So a tiebreaker could go to Orlando. Springfield's not going to win a tiebreaker at any point against anybody. So I don't mind that they kind of stayed pat and kind of are going with what they got. Now, that could come back to bite them, maybe, but to me, I think they roll with what they got, and I don't mind this. I'm going to give them a B minus. I'm going to give them a C plus because I just can't get over that Peterson trade. But I don't mind that they stayed pat because they could have gone way further down the rabbit hole and it could have cost them a lot in the future. Cheating Raiders are okay, so this is a weird one for the Raiders and myself here. It's one of those where I go into for weeks I've been thinking about these trades. Trades. Okay, should I get Bassett? Should I go after all these guys? Who should I sell? Do I keep Witt? Do I keep Scooble? Do I keep all these, Kelnick? Do I trade these guys? What do I do? So it's a weird spot. It's a spot that I hope everybody gets to experience. I've never been here before. You got 2 losses and 11 wins, and you're sitting here thinking that there's two frames of thought. You rather buy to win the whole thing, like hope that you can buy and be so good that you can at least win one playoff game, or you buy to make the playoffs. My frame of mind is that you kind of buy to make the playoffs, and the playoffs are generally somewhat random. And if that's the case, then theoretically, the Raiders are probably only 5 wins away, maybe 6 from guaranteeing a spot. Everyone's going to beat up on each other, of course, but they're only 5, maybe 6, and it's a lucky spot to be in. We haven't talked about this a lot this week. It's a lucky spot to be in because they're like second or third in points, and they have like 3 more wins than the first guy is very lucky, obviously. But it's a weird spot because do you really go in and sell Witt for some of these big name pitchers, knowing that you're probably going to make the playoffs? And like, are you going to guarantee that? So again, I'm going to use Bassett. Are you going to guarantee that Bassett on week 1 is going to pitch better than Nathan Eovaldi? I'm not convinced. So they did some around the edges. I think that the big trade was early with Crone. I think that Josh Bell was struggling. He doesn't play every day. Torres is kind of all over the place. So coming in, getting Crone, getting him at first base, getting him at shortstop, that was the big play there. Upgrading to Castillo was good. I like that. This is rather going to be one where if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to deeply regret not buying more. If they do make the playoffs or win, then they will look like really good, obviously. So I'm going to give it a standard B because we'll have to see what happens here. West Coast, bringing in some good product here, as you can see, and honestly didn't really give a whole lot. West Coast did a good job because I feel like the market that everything that he did was like at market cost. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I always say relief pitcher, first round pick. Okay, got that. So it's like he got all these first round picks, he's got all these nice prospects, and he got he didn't give up like a bunch of. I don't know. I'm giving this an A. I like it. I like it a lot. Moving on. I'm getting tired, obviously, here. This is like a half an hour. We don't go this long normally. Nittany Tide. I got to say, with Nittany Tide, I was a little disappointed that they didn't go and do more. Yeah, I know that the spots are probably full and there's not much to do with picks, so picks aren't very valuable. but you do have the plus spots. You know, you can move guys around. You could get future picks. You saw what Dip City did. They have like 1,000 picks now. Those picks can be used next year to trade for other things. You know, they're a little bit like candy, but 2 years ago when my team won 3 games, I was acquiring picks that I now have that I've just resold to other teams for things to help me win now. So it's like you'd rather have picks and not need them than not have them and need them. So it's kind of disappointing to see. I know that I had offered Strowman for a first, and you know it could have been something, but you know there just wasn't a lot here to go off of. So grade wise, I'm actually going to go lower than I should probably, and I'm going to go with the old D plus here because I feel like there could have been more action here, more things that could have gone on. Midtown, tell me it's the last one. It's not. Oh boy, we got 3 more at least here. Okay, I gotta get through this. Midtown, like I said before, I feel like they could have split this out and gotten a little bit more. There was other guys out there like who was it? Another pitcher that they had. Robbie Ray is still out there. He's like $2 at $1. He's been pitching really well. So I feel like there was other things that could have happened that just didn't. Now, of course, you could say Midtown is going for maybe an NIT championship here, and that is potentially possible. But I'm going to give this a C because I feel like there was a little bit more that could have been done here. Young Bucks in a similar boat. I feel like they could be going for an NIT championship. I also feel like they just had a baby, and it's really difficult to do these things when you just had a baby. The deadline was not a great time for him, nor myself. But you know, there wasn't a lot of action here. But I think the Young Bucks are trying to win. They're trying to improve, and so I'm going to give this just a standard lower grade, but I'm going to give it a C as well. Country Strong, I like what Country Strong did because they, like I said, they went around the edges and they kind of padded up. They put the boards up. They're ready for the hurricane kind of a thing. They didn't go crazy. I think that if Country Strong finds themselves out of the playoffs this year, they're going to have regret. I think if they find themselves in the playoffs this year, then they're going to feel like a king, if you will, because they didn't really give up a whole lot, and they didn't. And if they didn't need to, then they're going to be beautiful spot. So they go around the edges. They get some good stuff here. I'm going to give Country Strong a solid B plus. I'll go there with that grade. And they're kind of like my team in that regard. So you know what? If it's like my team, I'm going to give them a B um, because our records are a little bit different, and he might have needed to buy more to make it, whereas my team maybe didn't need to buy more to make it. All right, guys. I'm tired. Kids passed out. It's hot up here in the attic. This was super long. Let's do this again some other day. We'll see you next time.